sorry for making. Are you hearing me? Okay. Sorry for making you wait. We were waiting for the moderator. We've been trying to get in touch with him. Unfortunately, we were not trying to find him. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes, and I just would to ask you if you would mind that we begin without him, and maybe if he joins us, he could later join the session, and then we could just follow the order of the session as it was foreseen. And I hear more or less like a line, and we could start with the different presentations. Because on the contrary, we are missing him, and it's complicated to know how he wanted to structure the session without talking with him before. So if you can please open your microphones and give me your opinion about if it's correct for you beginning without him, or if you want just to wait him 5 minutes more, I would really appreciate it.
As you like.
Okay.
Do we know how many people are connected at the moment?
Yeah, we have right now like well, more than 30 people connected. We're just waiting for more, and
Okay.
waiting. Let's let me check. please, can you unmute? We are about to start. We're connecting with the moderator, Mr. Idris Atef. I will kindly ask him if you can change the name of your screen and write Idris Atef, your proper name, instead of Awi.
No, it is the company is called MEFOSA.
Okay.
MEFOSA, MEFOSA, and my first name is Atef.
Okay,
Atef, ATEF, and my family name is Idris, IDRISS.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. May you please write the proper name on the screen?
Write my proper name on the screen. Yes, let me see how to do that. Okay. We're starting at 9. We're starting in half an hour.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just talking with the people of the streaming company. Okay. Hello. Nice seeing you.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Atef. They said to me that once you change the name here on the screen, okay, then we count 15 and then we will be on live, okay?
But can you remind me how to put the name on the screen?
Yes. You go to the three, once you move your mouse on your screen, you will see that you have 3 points, 3 small dots. You put it on, and then you will see replace your name.
Yeah, just a minute.
Did you find those 3 dots to replace your name? Okay, perfect. Perfect. Mr. Idris? Mr. Idris? Mr. Idris, please. Could you please open your camera? Okay, right now. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to start the session. You'll be the moderator, okay? And yeah, you need to put your camera, okay? But you will see your face, okay? This is right. And right now they are going to count 15 back, and then we will be on live, okay? And you can begin the session and start moderating. Please, if you could take
Luis?
a seat. Yes?
Are we able to record the session on our own laptops?
Yes, we will record the session.
Okay.
And the session will be on the stream on YouTube. So don't worry about it.
Okay.
If you remember, we already sent an email informing about this. And if anyone had any objection, then we were going to talk with you. But we will record it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Atef, may I ask you to put your camera not in vertical but in horizontal? I mean, are you with your telephone? Okay, like that. Thank you. Perfect. We will start in 10 seconds. They are counting back. You will see your picture and a framework of MW21 Barcelona. We will be on live. I will disconnect right now. I will pass you some questions if we have questions in the public. Okay, have a good session.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hope everybody can hear me well.
Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us here, and it's a privilege to be with you to address ASCAME's MEDA Week on agriculture. And I'm glad that we're all trying to better address the opportunities in the region and better addressing how ASCAME and its stakeholders can further look at opportunities in furthering not only trade, but cultural opportunities in addressing agriculture and food. A lot of the ASCAME engagements have been centered on addressing and harmonizing issues on different shores of the Mediterranean. I come personally from Lebanon and have been living the Euromed agreement for some time. Anyway, without further discussion, may we start? And I would present each one of you, yet I prefer that you tell us a little bit of a brief of what you do and why you think it is so important for shores of the Mediterranean to harmonize their agriculture and their good agricultural practices. For me, I'm a food engineer and an agriculture engineer who has been trying for some time to address opportunities in reaching Lebanese and Arab diaspora all over the world. A lot of our clients import food from the East Mediterranean, but sometimes we need to better address the specifics of codex and the ISO certification requirements. And I hope that we will all today be looking not only at the mechanics of trade, but also at why food safety and biosafety are important. Without any further engagement, please go ahead, introduce yourself, and tell us your story. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm the first to start, if you agree.
Yes, Willie, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. And thanks a lot for the organizers to inviting me to this MEDA Week this year, and in particular, of course, for this first meeting on agriculture and food. My name is Willi Schulz-Greve. I'm working in the Directorate General for Agriculture and Rural Development of the European Commission, currently, well, situated in Brussels. Together with my team, I work on international aspects of agriculture, international organizations such as FAO or OECD, trade analysis, and also on our EU relations with Africa in agriculture. Agriculture and food processing are, of course, key sectors for all of us because everybody needs to eat. They are key sectors also for those who make their living out of farming and food production. They are key sectors for the livelihood and income in many regions in the Mediterranean. And very important as well, they are key sectors for our natural resources, for biodiversity, the oceans, and the climate. I'm here to look at it from a political perspective, and that is what I want to contribute to open the session. The question for us in policy is always, how do we best organize our food systems, not only locally, but also globally, in the Mediterranean in particular, but also in each individual country, to deliver exactly what we want: sufficient, safe, as you referred to, Chair, but also nutritious and affordable food, which is produced in a sustainable manner for a growing global population. And in this global dimension, the UN Secretary General has embarked in this question and has organized a UN Food Systems Summit to discuss the way forward. food systems and a systemic approach play a crucial role in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals of the Agenda 2030. And in 5 action tracks, government officials like me, but also stakeholders, scientists, private sector representatives, and citizens have worked to identify game-changing solutions to first ensure access to safe and nutritious food for all. Second, to shift to sustainable consumption pattern. Third, to boost nature-positive production. Fourth, to advance equitable livelihoods. Fifth, to build resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stress. At the UN summit on the 23rd of September, the political leaders confirmed their commitment to a number of actions and coalitions to exactly contribute to a transformation of food systems. And the Mediterranean countries assembled here were actively involved in this process, and with a number of investments in sustainable food production, we hope will follow from this. In the EU, we have embarked on a farm to fork strategy. That's our approach to bring our food system in the EU in line with our Green Deal and our objectives in climate action and the global sustainable development goals. We have set targets for our agriculture and food production, but also for a more healthy diet and less waste. By 2030, we want to reduce, for instance, 50% of the overall use and risk of chemical pesticides and reduce by 50% the more hazardous pesticides. We want to reduce nutrition losses by at least 50% while ensuring no deterioration in soil fertility. We also want to reduce sales of antimicrobials for farmed animals and in aquaculture by 50%. And we want to go for 25% at least of EU agricultural land under organic farming, just to name the most prominent objectives we have proposed to our member states. These are objectives within the EU, but this will require a lot of innovation and investment by the private sector, and we are ready to support this with our policies. But of course, we cannot achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and a sustainable food system on our own. We want to work with our partners and our neighbors, in particular in the Mediterranean. What we want to do is building green alliances and partnerships with other countries. And I'm very pleased that we already launched a green partnership with the Kingdom of Morocco recently. We have also introduced our Green Deal and Farm to Fork objectives in many cases, in many of our international cooperation programs with Africa and the neighborhood region, which are currently in the final phase of approval. So we will have some money available to cooperate on these issues. And we will put much stronger efforts on sustainable food systems in our trade policy, in particular in specific chapters on sustainable food systems in new trade agreements, which we are currently negotiating. At the political level, the European Commission has tabled a communication on a renewed partnership with the southern neighborhood in February this year. The new agenda claims for a green, digital, resilient, and just recovery, guided by the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Paris Agreement, and the European Green Deal. In June this year, we had our 4th African Union, European Union Agriculture Ministerial Conference, confirming our common interest in sustainable food systems and in investment in the agri-food sector. And we just had the 2nd Union for the Mediterranean Ministerial Conference on Environment and Climate Action in Cairo on the 4th of October. So at the political level, we think we have a very good framework for international cooperation and for the development of the private sector in farming and food. As the title of this session says, a vision is needed. We think a vision is there. Let us now use this framework and work together, public and private, to transform our food systems globally for the benefit of the people and the planet. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Willie, for clarifying. I'm going to ask one question and move ahead, and we will later do a whole round of discussions. A lot of the issues that the Southern Mediterranean partners insist on is an equitable political vision, an equitable political engagement, not only in a vision or mission or objectives, but also in practical research or practical funding of issues between the Northern Mediterranean and Southern Mediterranean. Can you please expand a little bit on this specific topic that I'm sure interests all in 1 minute?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, of course. The common vision, I think, we will build in the international organizations. I have mentioned the UN Food Systems Summit, and that is where all countries, northern and southern of the Mediterranean, contribute. On top of that, well, for our internal development, we have our vision, which I tried to explain, but we have a lot of programs to cooperate and develop a common vision in research, in our development cooperation with, in particular, the African Union or individual countries, and also in specific partnerships which we want to build, including in research cooperation, where our programs are open for participation of Mediterranean countries. I hope that gives a little glimpse of what is possible. We can deepen maybe later in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We all hope that the EU, Euromed, and neighborhood partnership is a win-win partnership. We move to our second speaker. Please go ahead, identify yourself and present us your input, sir.
Thank you very much. I will speak in French for my presentation. My
name is Walid Gaddas, the General Director of a consultancy working in agricultural issues. We work in various countries in North Africa and the Middle East. I'm going to give you a brief presentation to talk about two aspects. The evolution of food systems in the Mediterranean region is translated by two elements. Today, we are experiencing the prevalence of moderate or serious food security. That is to say, the resources for 2018 to 2020 was 40% or 80% of the northern Mediterranean was in a situation of moderate or serious food security, but it's four times higher in the southern Mediterranean countries, where it goes from 18 to 37% is in moderate or serious food insecurity. The problem today is the prevalence of obesity among adults. It's been seriously rising. It went up to 40 to 60%. That is to say, the percentage of the rate of adults who present obesity has seriously increased. For example, in Greece, it went from 18.5% to practically 25% of the population. In Algeria, we went from 17.8 to 27.4 in the same period. In Morocco, 16 to 26. In Malta, from 23 to 28, 11. And this phenomenon is increasing. If we try to see what the origins of these two problems, moderate to serious food insecurity and the prevalence of obesity, we're going to see that there are many causes which are underlie these phenomena. There are long-term factors which we could intervene on to improve the situation if we reflect in terms of agricultural production. The small agricultural units are not very productive, and not very productive contribute to this food insecurity. Bad agriculture practices, waste of agricultural resources, a failure to rotate crops, etc., contribute to this problem. With respect to marketing in the south of the Mediterranean, we have badly organized food distribution circuits. Regarding obesity, we also observe a change in food habits with more sugary products, more animal protein being consumed, and that not only causes obesity, but heart disease and diabetes. Another very serious issue we find is food wastage. In countries where there is food insecurity, we observe wastage, which goes from 15 to 50%, depending on the type of product. If we look at tonnage, it means 9 million tons that are wasted in France, 7.6 tons in Spain. If we take Northern Africa, it was the FAO estimated at 200 kilos per person per year. In Tunis, it's about 2.5 million tons of food wasted a year. In Algeria or Morocco, which has about 35 to 40 million population, about 7 million tons of food which are wasted. If we compare with that food insecurity, we see there are things that could be improved from that perspective. There are other factors which are external, which we would have more difficulties to intervene on. First of all, there's climate change, which leads to an increase in very extreme climate episodes, flooding, drought, etc., which contribute to decreasing agricultural yield. And one of the consequences are recurring food crises, as we had in 2017, 2018, 2020, 2021. This is a major problem that we must take seriously. And if we add to this what's happening now since last year with the pandemic, that doesn't improve things. Not to mention, though, we can create opportunities out of those problems. There can be solutions. There are some solutions already, and we need to work in that regard to resolve these two problems I mentioned initially. If we look at the problem of land distribution, there should be policies to encourage small producers in cooperatives, better oversee them. Creating cooperatives is good, but it's not enough if there's not long-term support. We see that cooperatives by themselves don't survive. And it's truly very important to work in that sense, because these small producers today, most of them live in poverty. They are surviving in poverty. The question raised is how to get them out of poverty and how to get them to improve the quality of their product, because today there's wastage. These small producers have very small yields. It's a waste of resources, a waste of land, a waste of water. And we must truly look at the question of support for small producers, not just from the social angle, but from a more global perspective, which will include environmental aspects, social aspects, of course, and economic ones. We must truly make them economic operators who can live correctly, decently off their work. Another point which is important is how to encourage more people to invest in the agricultural sector. If I take the case of Tunisia, where I'm based, the average age of farmers is 60. In 10 more years, if there's no renewal, we could wonder how sustainable agriculture will be. Another very important issue is to reinforce resilience to climate change, encourage development, and above all, the use of digitalization of agricultural solution. Today, we're working on a project in Tunisia with agro-tech startups. I know there are tens of extremely efficient solutions that allow us to resolve issues related to climate change. Precise irrigation is one such solution, which there are startups that have developed solutions which allow you to save a lot of water, and agriculture is the major user of water, practically 70% of water resources. So in a region where water resources are rare, there is a problem of water deficits. So if we could generalize these water-saving solutions, we could contribute to get greater resilience to climate change. There are other solutions for cattle raising, for example, solutions for a better management of farms. It's also important to work in developing vertical agriculture, hydroponic farms, and there are many startups working on those areas. And then with respect to marketing, which, as I said, in the southern Mediterranean countries, there is a problem of organizing distribution circuits. We could work more on online sales, B2B, so producers could have greater access to the market. I could mention some projects that I saw in Morocco where the farmers were sheep raisers, and they went online and they sold their entire production for l'Aïd on the internet. They had to deliver their sheep, and they got much more competitive prices than if they'd gone through intermediaries. In Tunisia, we had the same experience. It worked very well. Tunisia also has platforms for selling local products, and their solutions to reduce food wastage that allow you to work with distributors and supermarket chains and food stores to recover the products and sell these products at a lower price, which allows these products to be used instead of just throwing them out, which was the case up to now. So I just wanted
2 minutes, Mr. Abbas. 2 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
I'm going to finish. I just wanted to tell you that these issues can be resolved thanks to technology, thanks to better organization, thanks to more effective policies, thanks to international cooperation that will look beyond social issues. Well, thank you very much for your attention.
If I may, can I ask you a question in English? My French is not that good.
Yes, you can. You can.
Mr. Ghadas, one of the issues that agricultural stakeholders in the southern Mediterranean complain about is their ability to get finance to better address vertical agriculture, or better address mechanization, or better address all the aspects that you've talked about. Can you please give us some idea in 1 minute on how you have been addressing the financial constraints in the supply chain?
Yes.
En français,
je vais répondre en français, ok.
In French, okay.
La question du financement est
The
un
question
très
of
gros
finance
problème.
is a major problem. Now, if you're a small producer, you have 1 hectare or 5 hectares, indeed, it might be very difficult to get financing. Now, that's why the idea of working on regrouping or joining producers could facilitate this access to financing through microfinancing institutions or through classical banks or even through development projects, because it's a lot easier to support a cooperative which brings together thousands of farmers rather than to aid each of those farmers individually. The solution for me comes through a pooling of effort and bringing together farmers, and that creates other opportunities for marketing that would allow you to buy fair trade products. We need to work on those aspects.
Thank you so much. We'll move to the third presentation. And again, please introduce yourself and advise us of your presentation.
So maybe it's me, because I understand that the AFDB is not present.
We can't hear you well, please. Can you speak to the mic?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Mr. Remy,
can you hear me now?
A little bit low.
Okay, I will try to speak loud. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and many thanks for giving the opportunity to be part of this meeting. My name
now we're much better. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So my name is Rémi Trier. I'm working for the World Bank based in Rabat, Morocco, and managing the fantastic portfolio that we have in agriculture and irrigation sector, mainly in Morocco, but a bit also in Tunisia. So I would like to share with you an example, as an example of what we are doing, and with a short PowerPoint, how the bank is supporting Morocco with what we call the grid. Let me share my screen. I hope the technology will work. Can you see my screen?
We see it well, but go to full screen, please.
Okay.
Yes, that's very good.
Here we are. Yeah, so as an example, I will explain what we call the grid approach applied to the agri-food system in Morocco. No? Grid meaning the green, resilient, and inclusive development. So let me go quickly through the different letters. No? So the first one is green, obviously. Green because we want to support Morocco, and we are not alone in this initiative. Also, there is other international institution supporting Morocco. But what we want to achieve here is to help the country to produce more competitive, greener, and safer food with intervention all along the value chain. This is why you see at the bottom of the slide, from the farmer to the agro industry and to the boat, no? Because we are talking about agri-food system, not only obviously the primary production of agriculture. So we have been involved in supporting the country through the Green Morocco Plan, and now within the Green strategy, the new ag strategy in Morocco, using different instruments such as policy dialogue and a huge portfolio of projects with a current commitment today of 750 million of USD. So the greening of the food system, just to give some example, is for example, shifting the rain-fed agriculture system to climate-smart agriculture, especially in the rain-fed and dryland area of Morocco, where there is a target of shifting system for current rain-fed cereal to conservation agriculture, with a huge target of 1.5 million by 2030. So obviously doing that, there is an adaptation and mitigation dimension. Another example, it's supporting the development of organic production from today around 12,000 in Morocco, again with a target of 100,000 hectares by 2030, and also the niche product. No? And then if we go along the value chain, obviously the food safety is key on the policy reform, also in investment. The bank is also financing 2 innovation centers in Berkane and Meknes to add value to the production. So innovation in agri-processing. This is what we call as an innovation center for agribusiness. And as well, we are going to support.
We can't hear you, please. We lost your voice.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
No, actually, we can hear you well from our end. I think it's mainly the moderator that has.
Okay. So okay, I don't want to shout in the mic. Okay. Yes. Also, we are supporting 5 big and modern wholesale market in 5 main cities of the kingdom. No? So this is some example for the green. For the resilience, what we want to achieve, I think several speakers mentioned before, we want to do more and better with less resources, no? Meaning water, soil, and also subsidies, financial resources, under an uncertain future. So on the one important aspect is to be more resilient to fiscal constraints, especially that we are in a post-COVID very constrained fiscal space. So the agenda of repurposing subsidy to be more efficient with the resource that the sector has is a key sector. And then we have I would say, the traditional agenda of resilience, resilience to climate shock, no? Like moving to more adapted production in the rain-fed area, such as olive and argan. There is a huge program in Morocco to increase the area of olive and argan tree. Obviously, again, the climate smart agriculture is part of is both green and resilient, no? And somebody mentioned before, the irrigation subsector in Morocco is huge, with almost 2 million hectares equipped of irrigation. So there are huge investments of what we call the water conservation technology, micro irrigation, for example. But what we are seeing now and what we are trying to do in our project is to both is combining water conservation technology with the water conservation policy, no? Like discussing the groundwater management, the quota, the tariff, because you cannot only invest in technology without the policies, no? And then on the inclusive, the objective is to create a quality jobs along the value chain with a special attention to youth and female, no? And this is very strong in the green generation strategy now, because there is this target of creating 350,000 jobs in the sector, but not only jobs in the primary sector. They're calling jobs a youth entrepreneur, no? From farming to services, upstream and downstream the value chain. So this is where the digital agenda is also a key agenda to create the new quality job. The gender is key, and also what we are calling the productive alliance is that, as Mr. Gadas mentioned, there's a question of land fragmentation with a lot of very small holders, so they need to be supported and linked to the market and sometimes to the commercial farmers. So this is what we are trying to do in Morocco, sometimes they call it aggregation, and in the bank we call productive alliances. Also, the support to the new generation of cooperative with a strong emphasis on the advisory services, it's key. And all of this, obviously, it's the example of Morocco. So we all know that Maghreb, it's not like Morocco. So duplicating this model is sometimes a bit difficult. But we believe that this grid option or approach, it's like a comprehensive approach to make the agri-food system stronger and more sustainable. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Mr. Remy, I need to ask you one question, if I may. We feel that there's so much advances happening in Morocco, and I wonder if this is because of a concerted effort or because you have identified key performance agenda. A lot of the plans in the lower Mediterranean do not have key performance indicators linked to each of the aspects you mentioned. Have you defined KPIs for food safety, for innovation, for better addressing resources and addressing gender and what have you in your plan? And are you publishing your key performance indicators on a quarterly or a yearly basis to monitor and to follow up the active engagement that we are all witnessing successfully in Morocco? How are you doing this? A little bit more pragmatically.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, first of all of this, it's the Moroccan credit now. We don't want that to claim that the bank is doing all of this. The plan out there, the Green Morocco plan for the last 10 years, and now the new generation green, they are the one who built the strategy, and the bank and other international institutions, we are trying to support and advise on this strategy. So related to your question, we are using two instruments in our portfolio, and the new instrument we are using is what we call the program for results, where we agree with the government on financing activities, but there is some DLI, disbursement link indicator, where we agree that if we when the countries build, can you hear me? When the country builds a one wholesale market, it will trigger some payments. So we have two programs like this, 2P4R, and there's a series of DLI or key performance indicator, and they are published on the project appraisal document. And every 6 months, we also have a public document monitoring the progress. So I guess it answers your question, but we are happy to discuss with more detail anytime during the session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we move now to our fourth speaker, and I hope Mr. Othman is ready to present us with his case, and also do present yourself, sir.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Atef. So my name is Othman Tlemsani. I'm Moroccan. I'm currently based in our Casablanca office.
Mr. Othman, I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Let me see. I think other colleagues do hear me well, right?
Yeah,
yes,
I'm hearing you well now.
We can hear you.
It might be the volume, Mr. Atef, on your phone, maybe, or your computer. If you could decrease it, maybe it might help. But yeah, I was saying that I work for the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. I've been with the bank for 10 years now, covering specifically the agribusiness sector. What we call agribusiness in the bank is anything from agriculture to food retail, so it's the whole value chain. And we have started working on this in the Southern Mediterranean precisely 10 years ago when I joined the bank at the end of 2011, when EBRD historically has been more active in Eastern Europe, or let's call it the ex-Soviet bloc, helping this bloc to transit.
Allow me to stress again, I'm not hearing you.
Oh, okay.
Do we have any problems with hearing Mr. Uthman?
No, we can
or is
hear
it
you
just
fine.
me?
Unfortunately, I think it's just you.
If it's just me, go ahead.
No, it might be the volume, Mr. Atef, on your end. Probably you need to increase the volume on your device.
I can hear you now very well. Something.
Okay, so,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, so I was just saying that yeah, so historically we've been more active in Eastern Europe, and over the last 10 years we have increased our presence in the Southern and Eastern Mediterranean, including Turkey. So I was just actually doing some maths because my angle, of course, is investments, and I think the particularity of EBRD is that we are very much focused on private sector in comparison to other development finance institutions like the World Bank that Mr. Remy is representing today. And I think just for last year, for 2020, we invested in just in Turkey, Egypt, Greece, and Morocco. Around 39% of the bank's investments, annual investment last year, were in these 4 countries, representing approximately 4.3 billion euros. So we're talking about significant amounts that we started from zero 10 years ago, and now only these 4 countries represented 4.3 billion last year. And out of the total investments last year, 75% approximately was in private sector. I think from my perspective, coming back to the food value chain and to our observations as recent investors in this region, and trying to help also with the development agenda, I think first of all we can clearly say that some of these countries, for example Morocco or even Tunisia, are increasingly plugging into global value chains, including in food value chains, and that's good news. For example, if we take the example of Tunisia to change a little bit from Morocco, you know, we have been very active in the olive oil sector, where we have supported a number of players, major players or global players. And all these issues that I think my colleagues have mentioned earlier regarding traceability, biosecurity, quality, etc., have been really on the top of our intervention. And the way we do it usually is that so for example, when we financed, you know, global players like Borges or Sovena from Portugal or Spain, which had presence in Tunisia, you know, we try to push two agendas that are development agendas. One is to I would say support these players to bottle more locally, to create more local value, you know, by agreeing with them on a certain percentage of transformation locally, because as you know, in this value chain, unfortunately, historically, 90% of the olive oil produced in these countries has been exported in bulk, and then you know, processed, or if you wish, bottled, either in destination markets like in the US or in intermediary countries like in Spain or Italy, for example. So for us, it has been really key to try to see how we can help certain players to increasingly bottle locally. But to do that, of course, they had some requirements in terms of quality, in terms of traceability, and we've done a lot of interventions, like in policy dialogue, for example, you know, providing some training to farmers with the support from the EU, for example, in a number of programs, you know, to train farmers, maybe to take some farmers to the south of Italy to train them on, for example, pruning techniques. So we took a delegation from Tunisia to Puglia in association with the FAO. You know, we created a working group grouping, for example, private sector operators, including small farmers or small producers of olive oil, to how to brainstorm on how they can directly reach certain European customers, for example, like in the UK, certain retailers, etc., and what are the specs that these end customers require for them to, for these Tunisian producers, for example, to better penetrate these markets. And it has been relatively successful. So as you can see, I'm not sure I don't think it's thanks to us, but it's just a good coincidence, let's say, that Tunisia now is really, for example, in olive oil, in the last 5 years has been really increasingly on the world map as one of the major suppliers, particularly that it has luckily the chance of being for a large portion of its production naturally organic, which matched the recent trend of let's say Western consumers switching increasingly to organic olive oil. And I think Tunisia has been, with its good quality and quantity, has been there offering its supply to world markets. And for example, for the case of Morocco, I think I think Remy has already described all the interventions that are on this particular market. But I think what is interesting to see, and I know we have some EU representatives here, what we can see is that clearly Morocco today is emerging as a new direct competitor to Spain on a number of crops, and I think it's not a secret anymore, particularly on markets that have been naturally, I would say, dominated by Spain, for example, the UK, which after Brexit, of course, has now does not have anymore necessarily all the quotas that it used to have. And Morocco now is really present on a number of crops, be it in berries, in tomatoes, in other fruit and vegetables in general. And we could see, for example, that there is really an acceleration of both in production, but also in matching the trends on the demand side. So, for example, even there are new emerging markets that are opening for countries like Morocco. For example, we took as EBRD a delegation of Moroccan producers to Poland last year, just before the COVID crisis hit, where it has been a very concrete, for example, study tour where we met buyers, including retailers in Poland. And we could see that this, for example, markets in Eastern Europe that have accessed the EU not so long time ago are really becoming extremely interesting markets for origin countries like Morocco or Southern Mediterranean in general. It's quite impressive to see that the emergence, maybe thanks to the EU accession, of a true middle class that is increasingly consuming in Poland, in Romania, and a few other markets. And it was really interesting to see live, what were the challenges, for example, for exporters from Morocco, and also the transformation of fruit and vegetable market. For example, I recall one buyer from one retailer telling us that he wanted to be able to order fruits on Monday for a delivery to Warsaw on Saturday morning. So that's just to give you fruit and vegetables are becoming a bit like fast fashion, which has required a lot of adaptation. And really, like, we can see that there are lots of opportunities for Southern Mediterranean countries. And I think the EU is a fantastic destination. It's just that I think now it's really time for these countries to really accelerate their upgrade and adaptation. And I think all of us are here to help. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Before you go, one question on marketing. A lot of the concerns of cooperatives, of exporters in both parts of the Mediterranean is how to build brands around their agri and agro products. Building a brand is not easy, particularly when a lot of us do not appreciate that we need to protect the brand. Do you address or do you support farmers in creating collective brands and creating intellectual property related to branding? If you can tell us a little bit on this.
Yes, we do. So thank you for this very important question. So, for example, to come back to the olive oil, product, for example, you know, the whole intention of pushing even international players present in Tunisia to bottle locally was to promote the Tunisian origin, and not only the Tunisian origin, but let's say the Mediterranean origin, which has been, let's say, in olive oil dominated, particularly in major destination markets like in the US, of course, because of the Italian immigration, etc. You know, the American consumers, for them, olive oil is Italian. You know, it's Greek maybe, and maybe to a lesser extent Spanish. So it has been really like a difficult process to push this local transformation, just because, you know, it does not necessarily meet in the short term what the consumer in the US wants to see. But luckily, as you probably know, for example, in olive oil in the US, there has been recent regulations that are helping us in a way, because I think now, if I'm not mistaken, in the US, there is an obligation at the back of the bottle to mention precisely the percentage of olive oil coming from a specific country. Whereas in the past, it was not the case. So for example, if 50% is coming from Tunisia, I think it will have to show. I haven't checked it myself on the supermarket in the US, but I think so that is helping. And also, I think the awareness about the Mediterranean diet that it encompasses not only the northern shore, but also the southern shore, is also probably helping recent trends in promoting origins like Tunisian origin, for example. And also, for example, in Croatia, to answer your question directly, we've, for example, previously we've helped Croatia build, for example, a specific origin, controlled origin on specific mandarins, clementines coming from the south of Croatia near Dubrovnik, which have a little bit of salty taste. So we also help, you know, let's say some countries to develop what we call in French AOC, appellation d'origine contrôlée. So like some specific origin, and we are very open to assist countries, but also some cooperatives to develop. I think cooperative, the issue, in my experience, it's more cooperatives usually have complex structures that does not allow necessarily easy financing. Whereas I think what we have seen recently more on aggregation that Remy was mentioning, I think aggregation works better. Yes, sometimes it can be interpreted as giving the bargaining power to the aggregator, but I think if the objective is to plug the small, medium-sized farmer quickly into the global value chain, I think unfortunately or fortunately, this is the best route. So we've seen successful aggregations, happening either through a packing station, for example, in fruit and vegetables, or for example, in a few other, like in sugar, we've seen, for example, in Morocco, Côte d'Ivoire, aggregating 80,000 farmers with the best digital technology, and giving the inputs and having daily monitoring of each of these 80,000 farmers. And these successful, for example, aggregation contracts can be replicated in other value chains. For example, in potatoes, where a lot of these North African countries are still importers. So for example, you could, duplicate this with French fries production needing some specific, potatoes, and having a special aggregation contract.
Thank you, Mr. Osman.
Sorry.
You addressed the marketing, the appellation, and all the other issues that are of relevance. And I feel we touched on a very important topic. The cooperatives and the aggregation in our part of the world is something we need to address. But let's move on to our fourth and last presenter, please. Can you present yourself and tell us your input on our agenda? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Idris. I hope everyone is able to hear me. I'd like to thank the organizers and the wonderful panel for inviting the African Agri Council to join this discussion. My name is Ben Leika. I'm the CEO of the African Agri Council, among other responsibilities that have been entrusted to me. We are a Pan-African entity that promotes the development of African agriculture across the entire value chain. We are quite a young organization. I think we've been in existence for about 6.5 years. However, the progress and the work that the African Agri Council has done over the past 6 years has been focusing on the private sector and engaging with the private sector in food and agriculture, and creating that link between the private sector, your development, your development partners, as well as your policymakers. And through that journey, we find ourselves playing the role of the mediator to a certain extent, where we can bring all these different parties together. And out of those engagements, a couple of key issues started presenting itself that our stakeholders and our partners wanted the council to support in terms of the development of African agriculture. The first one was investment in agriculture. And this is a work that we've been doing for quite some time, identifying investment opportunities on the African continent and presenting those investment opportunities to our network of financial institutions, investors, and so forth. And I'm glad that we have on the panel a number of financial institutions joining us. I was hoping AFDB would have joined the discussion, because we do work quite closely with AFDB. And as our financial partners will attest, it's not an easy task at all on the African continent. One, you're dealing with agriculture, which is a long-term sort of investment kind of framework. Secondly, you're dealing with Africa, where you have to look at the political landscape and everything that's influencing specific decisions in terms of investments. And thirdly, you are dealing with a community that understands bankability differently to your investment community. When you're speaking to a farmer or a potential entrepreneur about investment, the first thing that they will tell you is they have land, they are near a river, they have a couple of cattle, they are producing maize maybe as one of the commodity. And because they have all those elements, they believe that they should be eligible for investment. So there's a bit of a bridge between what investment criteria financial institutions are looking for and what the community understand as bankable. So the council has been working in that space for quite some time, as I said, to try and bridge that gap, make sure that we can identify bankable opportunities that are presented to investors. But because we're working with institutional investors, most of the financial institutions are looking for large ticket size. Therefore, our commitment and our engagement with the investment community, financial institutions, policymakers, is to start thinking about changing and challenging the current status quo. Because if the majority of investment is targeting commercial farmers and looking at food production on the African continent, that's where 60% of it is primarily produced by your small and medium scale farmers, then we need to revise our investment strategy slightly. And when we're talking about investment, we're not talking about grant or development agenda. And this is a very important concept as the council we believe we need to present, because for a very long time, the narrative around supporting agriculture, food production on the African continent is around grant, is around donation, while we and the African Development Bank are looking at investment opportunities rather than grants. Therefore, that led us to our second focus in terms of the work that we're doing and looking at the modernization of agriculture. I was recently speaking at a panel, and most of our panelists started thinking about modernizing agriculture around the use of technology. And as much as it is true, we need to look at the use of technology in agriculture, in our production, and not just primary production, but looking at the entire value chain. But modernizing agriculture also has to do with how we, not just with how we produce, but how we invest in agriculture. how we train the people, the people that are producing in agriculture. And I was pleased to see in one of the presentation where we're talking about a new generation of cooperatives, because that forms part of the work that we're doing. When you're thinking about a cooperative, you have to think of it differently, not just a community of local farmers coming together and supporting each other, but really putting together proper structures that will help these cooperatives impact their members as well as the development of agriculture in that particular community. So that has supported the council in terms of the work that we have been doing. We have recently launched a program called Atari Africa, which is a program that focuses on training of our producers, looking at modern practices, looking at training them as entrepreneurs, not as farmers. And again, in a meeting with a couple of our partners, FAO, UN, and so forth, the language that we're using is we want to work with entrepreneurs in agribusiness. We want to train them. We want to give them the skills that they need. We want to coach them. We want to mentor them. We want an entrepreneur, when he's looking at his farm, is looking at it as a business. The first response was, well, Ben, that seems a bit advanced because we're talking about small to medium scale farmers. Well, we're referring to small to medium scale farmers as entrepreneurs. We want them to think as entrepreneurs because that's how you bring sustainability and efficiency into the business. And through this particular work, we're able to classify our beneficiaries into 3: rookies, masters, champions, or sprouts, trees, and seed, depending on where they are in the journey as an entrepreneur. And we tailor the support that we give them based on where they are. And through this initiative, again, we're able to leverage the network that we've built across the past 6 years or so, where we can bring in FAO, we can pull in the African Development Bank, we can pull in our colleagues from the EU Commission. We can pull in different partners to help us pretty much give an overview support in terms of what we're doing. Secondly, it's not just about supporting these businesses, it's connecting them to the markets as well, which falls part of the work that we do. And unfortunately for most of our farmers, when you start thinking about the markets, you're thinking about your big retailers. I'm currently in South Africa. So when you're talking about access to markets, immediately we're thinking about our big retailers here, ShopRite, Pick n Pay, Woolies, and so forth. We're not thinking about the informal market and how we can take full advantage of that. We're not talking about agri-apps that can be put in place in order to support access to market. We're not thinking about linking local production to international value chain. Your brand might not be at the forefront, even though branding and marketing force is a big part of the training that we're giving our beneficiaries, but integration into international value chain gives you access to those international markets. So that falls part of the work that we have been doing. And recently with some of our partners, we introduced supports directly targeted to cooperatives. Again, looking at the nature of cooperatives on the African continent and looking at the nature of cooperatives in Europe, in the US, Northern America, and so forth, there's a big difference in terms of how they operate and how they are institutionally set up to not just represent the members from a policy perspective, but even from an investment perspective, even from a growth perspective, from a training perspective. And unfortunately, some of our cooperatives are not set up that way. And this is something that the council has been working on to make sure that we can look at your legal framework, we can look at your commercial approach, your marketing strategy, we can look at how are you set up to run as an institution, but also to provide the appropriate support to your members so that they can grow and obviously grow the community. And lastly is youth integration. I believe Mr. Gadas had mentioned the challenges that we're facing on the African continent about our age group in terms of farmers. And this is not just a challenge that we're faced on the African continent, even in Europe. You can see the majority of farmers are quite advanced in age. So our approach now is, how do we integrate youth into agriculture? And again, the first thought in mind is, let's push them towards agricultural technology, which is absolutely fair. We need to encourage them into agricultural technology. But there's a very important point there. As much as agricultural technology investment has seen massive growth across the world, it's not necessarily the case on the African continent for various reasons. So we need to find a way to incubate and accelerate our agricultural technologies entrepreneurs and innovators through a specific program which the council is currently finalizing, but also looking at integrating them into primary and across the entire value chain. And we can see that there's that anger, there's that energy, there's that youthlessness that can be utilized if you present agriculture the right way. And that falls, again, part of the narrative that has been presented. When you're speaking to young Africans about farming, the first picture that comes to mind is an old woman tired with a baby on her back on a farm, sun burning. That's the picture that they have, and that's not attractive. And then you hear a lot of experts and leaders talking about making agriculture sexy for the youth. Yes, we need to make it sexy, but how do you make it sexy when they're not involved in discussions such as these? They do not contribute. They also are not heard in terms of how to integrate them into the development of agriculture. And believe you me, they have quite a lot to say in terms of how they can be brought into overall agriculture, not just primary agriculture. So in a nutshell, that's the work that the African Agri Council is doing. And I'm pleased to join this panel to learn from everyone and hopefully to be in a position to collaborate closely with everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. I have one question very relevant to what you're doing. Have you experienced business development centers in agriculture? Are you at all addressing accelerators that can bring forward some of the technologies or advances that you would be looking at? In 1 minute, please.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. Very good question. Yes. So the way we've designed our program is a incubator accelerated type of program, where we are able to look to pretty much have all our beneficiaries on one platform. And through that particular platform, they are connected to different mentors, they are connected to different business coaches, they are connected to different entities, agri-colleges, and so forth, which will help the development. But at the same time, through this incubation program, they are able to see the progress that they make. They are able to be connected directly to your markets, and likely we just signed an MOU which will give us access to about 50,000 global buyers across across different commodities, and they are able to connect to financial institutions, financial players, and alternative finance as well. Again, thinking about the likelihood of your institutional investors putting money into your small to medium scale farmers. So we need to look at alternative finance as well as a way to support these young entrepreneurs. So we are certainly putting all those systems in place and working very closely with different partners and players in the sector to make sure that we can bring an entire ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. It's been great. Lewis is reminding me that we're running out of time. In 1 minute, I'll conclude to thank you all for being part of ASCAME's MEDA Week and Mediterranean agriculture. We have looked at all kinds of approaches from Willie and from each and one of you. Mr. Ghattas was kind to present us with his views on what's happening, and I'm sure with the concluding remarks of Ben and Mr. Rahman, we have concluded all that we need to address. Thank you all and have a nice weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you all.